It's not just those being endlessly subjected to the incessant hammering of the diversity agenda in movies, TV shows, and adverts that are suffering these days. The people who actually own the woke companies pushing this culture revolution, the shareholders, have finally had enough. Free Enterprise Project's Ethan Peck says DEI is immoral, divisive, illegal, and detrimental to shareholder value. Ethan joins us now to explain why DEI is evil and the backlash that has already begun. Ethan, welcome to State of the Nation.
Thanks for having me on.
So, this is great news because this is one of the things that we've been saying. You know, the shareholders are the ones that are losing value. Go woke, go broke has been shown to be true with Budweiser, Bud Light, Disney, etc. But really, it's the shareholders. And this woke agenda is stealing money from their pockets, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just stealing money from their pockets, it's also using their money against their own values. So it's like it's funding activism against their own interests, and it's kind of like when you vote for a representative in Congress or state representative, they represent you directly, or they're supposed to. But this is it's sort of the same thing, but just like kind of like you're voting for the opposite party. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, take my money. The old "take my money" meme. Take my money and use it against me. Take my money, and it's
Exactly.
crazy. So you guys are talking about Coca-Cola, Pepsi, MGM, Citigroup here, just to name a few. So, what is Free Enterprise Project and your colleagues' message to these companies, and how's it being received?
Yeah, thanks. Well, it's not only talking actually. It's we actually buy shares in the companies, and then we submit like legal shareholder proposals requesting specific actions of the companies as shareholders. So if you own a certain amount of stock, let's say I think it's $3,000 worth over a span of 3 years, you could then submit a proposal. So we submit a bunch of proposals on a bunch of different topics. When it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion at those companies that you just named, we'll ask them to review how their diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts are, first of all, in violation of their non-discrimination laws, and also how it's detrimental to shareholder value. And then shareholders vote on it at the annual shareholder meeting.
It's a great
That's actually,
plan.
go ahead, Hish.
I was gonna say it's a great plan because, how else does one get their voice heard with something like this?
Yeah, they don't. It's the only way, really. How often do you get to speak directly to a CEO? And I've had the chance to speak to many CEOs at live recorded in a meeting, and present the question to their face. So ultimately, truly, the power, they still have the power. They still do what they can to ignore us or dodge a question the same way Joe Biden does to a reporter. And the BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, and Invesco, and Fidelity, and Goldman Sachs, and the rest of them still have the majority of the voting power at these meetings. And so the proposals aren't successful yet, but it's getting a grassroots movement going, for the first time.
And giving people hope, right? Because first time I saw DEI written out, it just leapt off the page at me. I'm a traditional Catholic, and Dei is Latin for God, and this is a false religion. It's absolutely meets all of the earmarks of a religion. And a friend of mine says, yeah, it stands for didn't earn it. And I think that's where the
Yeah.
backlash is coming, is because we're discriminating in favor of people who haven't earned the success that's being given to them on a platter. And what are they doing with it but turning around and arrogantly rubbing it in everyone else's noses? And I know a lot of investors are fed up with it. You're exactly correct. It's worse than stealing. It's using their money against them. But there's a long history of the left doing that in America. And I'd point people to the Ford Foundation, the Carnegie Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation, all started by conservatives, all taken over by leftists that now have turned those conservative foundations into agents of promoting the leftist agenda, which is why one of my heroes is Franklin Olin. Franklin Olin had a foundation that would be limited to supporting constitutional and conservative causes. And then there was a sunset clause 20 years after his death, I think it was. All of the principal would be liquidated and the money used to create a college of engineering in Needham, Massachusetts. So today there's the Franklin W. Olin College of Engineering. It's in Needham, right on the Wellesley line, and it shares a campus with Babson College. It abuts Babson, and the students at Babson can take engineering and STEM classes at Olin, and the students at Olin can take business and liberal arts classes at Babson. It's kind of a coordinate college system there. But that's really the way to do it, to make sure that your money isn't used down the road in a way exactly opposite to the entire mission of your life.
Yeah, and it happened so fast. It's, after the '08 crisis, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street's ETF funds really grew in prominence. And so that's how so much centralization happened. And because they also own each other, really what they do is they don't have, it's not, they manage assets. They don't have all these assets they don't own the assets. They don't own all these companies. They just manage other people's money and then vote in a certain way at meetings for certain board members and basically force these behaviors onto companies and then by extension people.
Yeah, and these are employees, suppliers, contractors, retained professionals. What do you think? Can we even estimate the cost of the discrimination that we're seeing right now? I mean, I don't even know how one would estimate the lost wages, the lost opportunities, the time theft, low quality work. I mean, how do we even do that?
It's absurd. There's so much. That's exactly what I say at these meetings when we present a proposal. I have 3 minutes to present it, and I say exactly that. Like Tim said before. Is it okay to call you Tim, or Timothy said before? It is a religion, absolutely, but it also is discriminatory against all parties involved because it discriminates against the people it purports to help. Black people or women or other ethnic minorities or LGBT people, because it's the bigotry of no expectations essentially. But then it also discriminates against the people that it takes jobs away from, like white people, straight people, and males. And then it also discriminates against shareholders, against the value of shareholders by not hiring the best person for the job. And then it harms the entire workforce because you're creating this divisive environment where it's not by merit. You don't advance by merit. You choose people by surface characteristics. And so that creates a hostile workplace. And then it also creates lawsuits and liability potential. So then that could hurt shareholders even further. And then by not, prioritizing the best people, you're not innovating, you're not pushing the company forward as best you could. So there's also that. It's just a whirlpool of destruction. It's horrible.
It's almost as if you set out to destroy our economy and our entire economic system, a capitalist system. You couldn't do a better job than what they've done. So the $64 million question is, and you've correctly pointed out that BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street Bank merely manage other people's assets. Who is ultimately orchestrating all of this?
I don't like to conspire or guess too much. I don't think there's one puppet master. Like, I think that it benefits the small group of people that are currently controlling other people's money to continue doing so. And, we try to name them as much as we can. The board members, the CEOs of the asset managers, Larry Fink of BlackRock, Ron O'Hanley of State Street. There's a bunch of people. There's a bunch of people that go back and forth from government to the asset managers, and vice versa. It's also the CEOs that sit on multiple boards, like James Quincy of Coca-Cola is on the board of Pfizer, and you have The CEO of Morgan Stanley, James Gorman, was on the board of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, like at the same time.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff, we're always trying to address it.
At
You're
what
right.
point does it what point do you cross over? Because this is something that it's amazed me that we haven't had more shareholder derivative actions.
You know, we're in a bunch of lawsuits. We're suing the SEC, Starbucks, um, and just the SEC is not that doesn't always rule in our favor. It's very complicated, but essentially, when we file proposals, companies elect not to have them on the ballot at all, and so then the SEC has to decide. It's called no action, and so then the SEC has to decide whether to allow the company to omit the proposal or to keep it on. And so, but they rule very biasly against us. They favor the left-wing shareholders, who, by the way, what we're doing, shareholder activism, most shareholders at shareholder meetings are from
Oppose
the
it.
left.
Yeah.
Yeah. The activists are usually the left-wing ones. They're trying to push the company to be more towards ESG, more environmentally friendly, demonizing reliable energy, more towards diversity, equity, and inclusion. Like it's not enough. They're keeping at it. And so we're like, you go to a shareholder meeting, uh, it's very strange. You have the left wing shareholders pushing the company to be more woke, the company going like, we're woke enough, and we're out there going, can you just be neutral? It's a
Yeah.
very bizarre situation.
Right. I mean, when you look at like how this works for employees, for example, I hear from friends and people that watch the show all the time, right? And they say, "Hey, I just had to go to my DEI training, and this has escalated. It used to be you'd go and you'd kind of click through a PowerPoint or whatever, or take a quiz at the end, maybe." But now it's like struggle sessions where they're sitting
Yeah.
down, they're being asked questions. It's almost like compelled political speech in the workplace. And if you don't do it right, a lot of people feel like, hey, if I don't do it right, then I have my path to advancement may disappear here. So there's a lot of like self-censorship happening, I think.
Absolutely. And that's why we filed a different kind of similar proposal this year that said, okay, to the companies, you're all so concerned about diversity. So we have a proposal that requests diversity of thought. And we ask companies to add viewpoint non-discrimination to their EEO policy the way they do, they protect certain ethnic minorities, like, protect religious diversity and viewpoint diversity too, because it's the sort of the orthodoxy of thought is so strong at these corporations. You have to break that in order to really defeat the diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah. I was going to say diversity of thought, viewpoint diversity. Ethan, what kind of radical are you?
Exactly. We really we're a conservative organization, but we really, truly, we've never pushed a company to adopt a single conservative view ever. We just tell
You
them to
wouldn't
be
want them
politically
to.
neutral.
You,
No,
you wouldn't
exactly.
want them to. Michael Jordan said it best 30 years ago.
Yep.
Republicans buy shoes too. A
hmm
corporation should be focused on one thing only, and that is maximizing shareholder value.
That or whatever the shareholders want. If there's some kind of shareholder revolution comes up and they say, oh, we all want this,
Yeah, well, whatever that value is, whether it's
exactly.
economic, whether it's social, whatever the
Yeah.
shareholder values, that's what the company should be focused on.
Exactly. The issue is not just that they're using shareholder money to push a political agenda. It's that they're using other people's money to push a
Right.
political agenda that those same shareholders are divided on. That's really where it's immoral, in my opinion, and honestly against the law. But like all things, just because it's actually against the law is also what gets enforced. So. Uh,
Well, I'm going to give you right now a royalty-free, fully paid up license to an expression that I use, and you can tailor it for the business world. I
okay.
always say I just want the government to fit back into the Constitution. So you're more than welcome to take that and say, we just want corporations to fit back into the capitalist system.
Hmm. Yeah, you really don't need to make new laws. It's just about
Yeah, just
it's
just
it's
just
about
get back to
enforcing the
doing.
laws that are
Well,
right,
it
enforcing
used to be
laws that are
said
already
that
there.
yeah, what was good for General American, what was good for General Mills, and what was good for General Motors was good for America, and that's what we need to get back to.
Hmm. Well, exactly. Well, not what's good for their CEO and their board of
Yeah.
directors
Right.
at the expense of the shareholders.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And getting back to who benefits and why, why would the Fortune 500 just set aside their fiduciary duty? You mentioned a bunch of the figureheads there and the people that are definitely worth scrutiny, but the way that you laid that out, I think really illustrates just why it's hard to talk about because you've got a system of revolving doors, you've got shady organizations and secret societies and international bankers and Davos creatures and CFR creatures. I mean, it's a very
Hmm.
murky realm that we're in. But one thing is for certain, there are very shrewd globalist thinkers that seem to have their fingers in international intelligence agencies, international banking agencies, politics, and the Fortune 500 and the military industrial complex. And that
Hmm.
is just too big of a thing for most people to even wrap their head around.
Absolutely. And just directly to your point, last year, like I said, we have a bunch of proposals. Last year, we submitted a proposal asking companies if it's congruent with their fiduciary duty to fund the World Economic Forum, Council on Foreign Relations, and other similar globalist organizations. And the ADL ran a blog about us saying that we were anti-Semites for using the word globalist. I wrote back to the ADL and I told them that I'm Israeli. I have a Jerusalem flag here, and that I'm Jewish, very pro-Israel, and I use the word globalist to mean globalist people that don't believe in national sovereignty, that are trying to merge corporations with this monolithic sort of entity that to rule all countries, and it's
Yeah.
an open conspiracy. And
Insert title
they
of appropriate James Bond movie here, right?
exactly, and they didn't even answer me. They just ignored me completely.
Yeah.
But I completely agree. These corporations really are really in bed with globalist entities like the United Nations and World Economic Forum.
They really are. Ethan, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much. I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize that today is National Holocaust Remembrance Day. So to all of our Jewish friends out there, good wishes on today. Ethan, Peck, thank you so much for coming. It's a free enterprise project. Check them out online.